So there I was on my third day of vacation. I was exhausted, I was hurried, I was stressed. And the crazy thing is it wasn't my first day of vacation. It wasn't even my second day of vacation. It was my third day, and our jobs aren't blowing our phones up. I am completely unplugged. And last week, if you missed it, you need to maybe go back and listen. But what I discovered was that I'm not alone in that moment. But many of you, actually, it was kind of counseling for me last Sunday. But you let me know that you felt that way before, where you felt hurried, rushed, exhausted. Can anybody relate? And so if you missed last week, you need to go back and listen to it. But for me, the thing that I think frustrated me the most wasn't the feelings that I was personally feeling as I was having a tough time really unplugging. It was the fact that I have these two little people with my last name. And honestly, it's one thing for me to feel exhausted or hurried or rushed inside, but I'm in the moment going, we finally carved out time to be here. We finally organized all our schedules to fully unplug, and now I'm literally on the beach with these incredible kids who are in the prime of their life. Yet, because of the rhythms in my own life of media, because of the rhythms of how fast I move all the time, because of the way my mind wants to wander to be somewhere else that I'm not, now I'm in a moment that I'm never gonna be able to get back. Can anybody relate? So I've titled this message today, Are You Here? Would you look to your neighbor and say, are you here? There's a Harvard study in 2010. This is pre-COVID. How many of y'all know that COVID has multiplied our media addictions? Yeah. Right? All the stuff. 2010, Harvard did a study, and it said this: 47% of the time, your mind isn't where your feet are. Let me give you the actual quote. People spend 47% of their waking hours thinking about something other than what they're doing. And this mind wandering typically makes them unhappy. You all know what I'm talking about? You know, one of the biggest culprits of that is media, right? It's our phone. We're the most connected we've ever been, yet depression is higher than it's ever been. Anxiety is higher than it's ever been, and we'll get into some of that today. But here's some staggering stats: is the average cell phone user touches his or her phone 2,617 times a day. A day. If you think about it, it's probably true. Now, you know, we're an above average church, aren't we? We do everything above average, so we're probably worse, you know? I was talking to one person this week, and they said they will sometimes just touch their phone just to keep it awake. I mean, they don't even know it. It's subliminal. Because, you know, it may not connect. We just got to make sure it's still working, you know? 2,617 times a day. The average American will spend roughly 20,000 hours playing video games by the age of 20. Wow. All right. Now listen, I'm not against video games. You know, I'll be honest with you. As a parent, I in some ways feel bad that my kids don't have the childhood that I had. So I'm 37. I'm just old enough where I did not have a smartphone in high school. So anybody that's in their late 30s, you know what I'm talking about, right? So if you're younger than me, you probably, because in university, I had a smartphone. So it was in high school. Like in high school, I remember being bored. I know that's crazy. But we used to actually, like there's pieces of paper, okay? What we used to do is we would fold them up and we would play football. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? And it's not that I didn't have video games, because I'm not that old, right? So like we had Nintendo and stuff. They just weren't that good. I mean, once you beat Super Mario Brothers, you're out back in the field. You know what I'm saying? It just wasn't, it was out. We're done. You know, so here's the challenge for our younger generation is it's so good. That's part of the problem. And even if you get into any of the documentaries, I wish I had more time today, but I mean, the makers of Facebook are not letting their kids have Facebook, by the way. The makers of Twitter are not letting their kids have social media. I mean, we got to just kind of figure all that out. In fact, there's an emergence in Generation Z to go back to flip phones. Like I don't know. I mean, I don't know how this is all going to go, but I do think there is a point where we could see this thing flip the other way, actually, where people are going to be so sick of it and how it's destroying their relationships and their marriages and their ability to be present. So let me ask you, are you here? Because 47% of the time of this message, statistically, you are somewhere else. It's hard not to start thinking about dinner on Monday night and Tuesday night and Wednesday night and how are we going to do the order and how are we going to do that and do we have a vacation planned? And this is a great time during this sermon to figure out my vacations and come on, I'm not a stranger to all that stuff, all right? It's a challenge for us. So 20,000 hours by the age of 20. Let me just tell you a few things you can do with that. If you took the 20,000 hours of video games and put it on something else, you could earn a bachelor's and master's degree. Does that include study time? I don't know. Brother Richard asked if it includes study time. I'm not sure on this stat, all right? You could definitely learn a second language. And at $10 an hour, you could have another 200 grand in the bank right now. How many of y'all think that would sound pretty good? Right? So, and once again, I'm not against media. Man, in college, I played more Halo than I should have. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, I don't know. But I played a lot of video games with people. And I'll talk later about our own rules in our house about media. And then you can decide whether they're good or not and make your own opinion on that. 77%, this was from an article in 2015 titled, "You May Have a Shorter Attention Span Than a Goldfish." It said 77% of young adults answered yes when asked, when nothing is occupying my attention, the first thing I do is reach for my phone. Come on, how many of y'all know that's true? All right, this morning, I wanted to get on social media right away, but I'm preaching on this exact thing today. And so I didn't do it, but it was hard. It's just not easy. And The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, which is the book that we're basing much of this on by Pastor John Mark Comer, he says this in his book. He says, this new normal of hurry digital distraction is robbing us from the ability to be present. Are you here? Chances are we're not that present like we want to be. And he goes on to say, it's present to God, it's present to other people, it's present to all that is good, beautiful, and true in our world. It's even present to our souls. Right? We have trained ourselves that when a great moment happens, we don't enjoy it, we record it. And here's my challenge. I'm 37, and I would consider myself to be a spiritually mature person. My wife may not, but I would consider myself to be. And this affects me. I can't imagine how it affects my 9-year-old and my 7-year-old. And so there's so much more at stake about our hurried lives in media than we give ourselves credit for. And I'm grateful today, and this is the premise of our series is out of John 14. But Jesus comes and he tells us who are troubled, who are hurried, who are worried. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. This is our main text that we're looking at. And so what we're clarifying in this series that Jesus isn't just the truth. He's not just the life. He's also the. And thank God that he provides us a better way. Yet we are 2,000 years removed from the walking of Jesus physically on this earth. Yet we are still following him in his way, and it challenges us, but it calls us to more. It calls us to a better life. It calls us to a better experience. And so 2 things I want to do today rather quickly is that Jesus is present. He is present in the moment. We see that all throughout Scripture. He's not running. He's not hurried. And I think he had a pretty big agenda. Like save the world from their sin, to seek and to save that which was lost is what he says. So he has a lot going on, yet he still was present with 2 things, with God the Father, and he also was incredibly present with people made in the Imago Dei, in the image of God. The first one, if you're taking any notes, is that Jesus is present in the moment with God the Father. If you have your Bibles, turn to Mark chapter 1. Verse 35, and this is the beginning of Jesus' journey in ministry, and he hits the ground running. Full marathon. He's preaching, he's teaching, he's healing people, he's kissing babies, he's doing it all. You know what I'm saying? It's a full day, early in the morning till late at night, and you would think after a full day of ministry, you would think that what he would do is wake up late, go get a nice brunch, maybe a massage, because he's been working hard. He's got to chill. Why are so many young people chilling? What does that mean? We're chilling. I want to chill. That's what I want to do. I want to chill. And listen to what he does. So here's what he does. It says, before daybreak, the next morning, Jesus got up and he went to an isolated place to pray. And if you're writing anything down, here's the challenge for us, is that we would embrace the spiritual practice of silence and solitude. How many know that's hard? Yeah. Yet the way of Jesus is that we would not be addicted to our phones. The way of Jesus is that the phone is a tool that serves us. We don't serve it. That's good. We serve him. And so he challenges us to have moments where we are alone with the Father and moments where we are quiet in his presence. That's a challenge. And listen to what it says. Later, Simon and others went out to find him. They didn't even know where he was. And when they found him, they said, God, everybody's looking for you. In other words, there's a demand on Jesus to produce. Like they need him. They're looking for him. They are challenging. They want more of his time. He came to heal. He came to set the blinded eyes, that the blind would see sight, that the oppressed would be free. Right? I mean, that's what he came to do. Yet, you might think because that's his mission that he would just continue. He wouldn't stop. He only has so many moments. He would go, 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 go. Yet here's the way of Jesus, that even though he's got this massive calling on his life, even though he's got a massive a thing that God's called him to do, he still understands the priority of spending time with the Father. And without that time with the Father, he's not going to be able to embrace his mission. And so he knew the best thing he could do was not just go get a massage. I'm not against massages. He knew the best thing he could do was get in the presence of the Lord. Are you here? And next time you put aside some time with Jesus, hopefully he's not saying, hey, knocking on the door of your heart, hey, are you here? Checking off your list. Don't check off the list with God. Get present. Make it a moment, right? Dennis Hester said this. He said, I'm always calling preachers to more meditation, reflection, and solitude within this rat race that we live in. If we do not come apart to be with the Lord, we will surely come apart. The psalmist in chapter 46, Psalm, verse 10, says, be still. How many of y'all know that's hard? Last week, I had some grown men come up to me, multiple, And they said, last week at the end, I challenged you to be quiet and sit there in the presence of God. And I had multiple grown men say, I started weeping. They say, Glenn, I can't tell you the last time I forced my mind not to wander and just sit in his presence. And the moment they did that, God just filled them with emotion. Listen, God loves you. He wants to fill your soul. He wants to speak to you. He's calling you to more, and he's also calling you to less. The point is, he's calling you. What is prayer? It's communion with God. That's it. It's not just talking, it's communion with him, spending time with the Father. There's a book, if we could throw it up here, I just want to give a resource here. It's Emotional Healthy Spirituality, Day by Day. It's a 40-day journey. This really helped me when I was getting my master's. I was forced to do this. Every person in my class were high-capacity people. We all hated this, yet we also loved it. And it's a 15-minute journey. And the challenging part of this is he talks about something called the daily office. And you could look it up later. You could take a picture of this. But it's a 40-day journey. And the very first thing you need to do every day, according to this, is you take 2 to 3 minutes and you sit in silence. Y'all, that's hard. Do you know how long 2 minutes is in silence? It feels like an eternity. Try it. And so here's 2 suggestions for you real quick. Schedule your time with God in advance, all right? You need to have a scheduled time. You schedule a lot of things. You prioritize a lot of things. Prioritize that time. And here's my one thought is, would you consider just spending a minute or 2 in silence before you start praying? I want to challenge you to do that this week. It will be very hard for you, but do it. Is your mind going to want to wander? Absolutely. In fact, in that book that I suggested, they answer a few questions in the back. And like, what do you do when your mind starts to wander? And it kind of unpacks some of that. But yes, that's the challenge to you today, because we are created to commune with our Creator. And so it's important for us to do that. Psalms 46:10 says, be still and know that I am God. Are you still here? Because 47% of the time you're out. Some of y'all will walk out and be like, man, that was a great 1-point sermon. I'm like, there were 2 points. Second thing is, Jesus is present in the moment with people. Imagine if Jesus was really here today in the flesh. You know, you're out in the lobby and he's like, hold on, what? Oh, wow, that's great, yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, I'll pray for you. Absolutely. Actually, I'm putting in my notes right now. Actually, I'm going to pray for you. Yeah. You think that's how he'd be? I don't think so. Sinners love to be around him. And obviously, it would have been awesome to see how he would juggle media. We have to do the spiritual work of figuring out, what does Jesus' life look like through us today? And that's not an easy endeavor. He lifted people's spirits. He made people feel like they were the only person in the room. Sinners loved being around him. The religious people were frustrated because of how much he valued them. It was hard for them. And I don't know about you, but there's a temptation to be anywhere else than where I'm at. How many of y'all are dating? Okay, every married person should raise their hand right now. You're still dating, all right? Just to be clear. I know it's a trick question. Don't get mad at me, all right? I know. But yes, we're all still dating today, okay? How many of y'all have been on a date? Come on, you already know where I'm going, where your spouse will say, hey, are you here? You want to tell them about our date? Like, go ahead, just text them, right? Or whatever, right? Or have you ever experienced it, right? Where you're the one and you know it. You're like, ugh, why am I doing that? Why am I everywhere else? And then even if it's not the media, it's the mind games that we can play. And we'll just go somewhere. Like, our mind naturally wanders. And it's a challenge for us to be present. How about your kids, right? Come on, your kids will call you out, won't they? Hey, you're on your phone. You tell us we can't be on phones. You're on your phone all the time. I'm like, well, we pay for the phones, you know? Come on, we pay for those jokers. I can be on as much as I want. But they're right. And they don't know any better. They're little, and if you have little kids, and all they see is that you seem to really love that thing. It's like, oh man, and what's robbing us from being in the moment? There's so many things that can tempt us towards that. One of them would be FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. It's a real thing. Missing out on the sale, missing out on the deal, missing out on the party, missing out on the moment, missing out. And if you're in middle school and high school, this is a real challenge for you. Guy, I know some of us that are out of high school, it may be a little while since we remember being in high school, but we had FOMO then. Come on. Don't act like we didn't have FOMO. If you didn't get invited to that party, you were upset. The problem now is that every kid knows about 40 parties that they weren't invited to. So it's multiplied, it's amplified. They have to. It's a bigger challenge for our younger generation. The second one for me that's a challenge is efficiency. I can get one more thing done. So if I'm honest, the win in my flesh is, can I watch my kids and also get work done? And can I do it in a way where my kids don't notice? Anybody relate? And even if I can get away with it, it's not healthy for my soul, is it? It's not a good place for us to be. And we may think, you know what, man, if I just get 10 more hours, God, you messed up a little. We needed 34 hours, not 24 hours. We just needed a little bit more time. But you all know that in all the stats and psychological stats would say that if you got 10 more hours, you would just fill it with more stuff that doesn't matter, and it would just make you even more hurried. So you don't need more hours. In fact, do not miss the next 2 weeks. Next week, we're going to have Pastor Steve Hogue here. And then the following week, Pastor Joe's going to be preaching, and he's going to be talking about this subject. How do you deal with those hours, and how do you find real rest for your soul, and how can we help others find real rest for their soul? That's 2 weeks from now. Do not miss it. But next week, we have Pastor Steve Hogue with us, and Steve and his wife decided to adopt a child. And then they decided to adopt another child. And finally, they ended up with 10 kids, y'all. This is their family. This ain't some Target picture. This is their family, and he's going to be with us next week. And not only he's an advocate for foster care, but the church, in our church specifically, we have a window right now where there are Tony Dungy and a couple Christian men underwritten for 2 years, millions of dollars, so that the church can work with DCF and can meet needs right in our own community. It's unbelievable. And you're going to hear about it next week. You do not want to miss it. I mean, what causes a person not only to adopt 1, 2, or 3, but to adopt 10? And he's going to share it. I'm telling you, our board, our staff were all in tears when he was talking to us. It was unbelievable. Do not miss next week. Invite somebody. But at the end of that, we are actually going to be one of the very first churches to adopt this ministry that's happening. And here's what's really cool. We're actually already doing it. And so we have already met the needs of 3 or 4 families in our community, and we can't show any pictures. We'll never talk about it really on Sunday with any photos, but I just want you to know, because of your legacy giving and because of your serving, we are already doing it, and next week you'll have an opportunity to be a part of it. Don't miss it. It's going to be incredible. But Jesus is present with people. Can you look to your neighbor and just say, are you here still? Luke chapter 19. You can turn there if you would like. This verse is so challenging for me. So Jesus entered Jericho, but he was just passing through. He's going somewhere else, but he passed through Jericho. So let me clarify. He's on a destination and on a purpose, yet he's passing through this place called Jericho. And a man there by the name of Zacchaeus Zacchaeus wasn't just a tax collector, he was the chief tax collector. Tax collectors took advantage of people. He had way more money than most of everybody else, and he had more money on the backs of everybody else. And this, in chapter 19, for the sake of time, verse 14 and specifically, Jesus, while he's passing through, has this moment with this man named Zacchaeus. And Zacchaeus comes to Christ and finds salvation in Jesus. Listen, Jericho wasn't his destination, he was passing through. But guess what? Jesus isn't just getting to a destination, he's present on the way. I don't know about you, but it's just so easy for me to miss it. This week, my son was jumping into our pool and sliced his foot open pretty bad. We didn't think it was as bad as it was. The next day, we're like, all right, he probably needs stitches. So I had some meetings I couldn't get out of, so my wife took my son to the urgent care. She said, she was telling me yesterday in tears as we were talking about this sermon, and she said, Glenn, we miss moments all the time. And she just said, I want to do better. She said, I was in urgent care, and we're dealing with our kids, HSA cards and all this stuff, and is he going to go to school? We got our own little world going on. There was this mom that came in with a little child, and the mom was sick. And Natalie, my wife, overheard this mom at the clerk at the front there. And the employee told her that she didn't have enough money and her insurance didn't work here. Nothing was working out. And so they turned her away, and she could not afford the $119 it was to go there. And so then Natalie overheard the mom saying, well, where can I go? I don't know what to do. And before she knew it, the mom was out. And Natalie's going, Glenn, I could have paid for that. Yet she was just so focused in the moment, and she had good reasons. I mean, it's our own kid. We're worried about our kid. He's got his open foot, blah, blah, blah. We can make every excuse we want to, but y'all, our mission is to bring God's love to this city one person at a time, and it's not gonna always be at the destination. It's when we're passing through. And sometimes it's when it doesn't make all the sense of the world. And so there's a moment there where I think if she would have been a little bit more led by Jesus, and this is her words, she's like, I would have met that need. Has anybody ever felt that? It was a moment that we missed. God help us. Come on, we don't want to be a church, right? You don't want to be that type of couple where you're always on to your destination, never having time, never having margin to meet people where they are, to put the dang phone down, look someone in the eye, and tell them that they matter. There's hundreds of people in our church today, and that would come to me or our pastor Eugene, and they would say, what solidified us being here was when you looked me in the eye and you said, welcome home. And one of the things I try to do when I meet new people at our church is to shake their hand as one of the pastors and look them in the eye and say, welcome home. You matter. I see you. You're here. And so there I was on the beach, hurried, rushed, and what frustrates me the most is I wasn't as present as I wanted to be. But thank God that I serve a Savior who doesn't just want to save me or give me theological precepts, but he also wants to show me a better way of living. Thank God I don't have to just go to the self-help book or somebody else, but I can look to Jesus, not just as the truth, not just as the life, but also the way. And here's what happens. When I start to slow down and have silence and solitude and start to spend some time with the Father, and when I actually start to be present, not just at the destinations, but also in the process, here's what happens. I become a better dad. I become a better husband. You end up getting the girl. You end up getting the guy. I end up being a better human being as I look to the Creator and look to Jesus as a model of how I can live life today. It's such a challenge, isn't it? So as we close, a few things. Don't serve your phone. It's a good tool. It's not a good master. And I don't know what your limitations are. And it's hard for me. I'm on the front row. Our whole team communicates through phone on Sunday morning. Our order of services are on Sunday morning. Everything's digital, right? And it frustrates me because sometimes I'm on the front row and I'm on my phone and it could seem like I'm doing something else or whatever, but I'm there and that frustrates me. I hate the fact we even kind of model it as a staff because that's how we are. But whatever this is for you, you just got to make a decision that I'm not going to worship my phone. I'm not going to serve media. It's going to serve me. And I have a couple house rules for our Wolf home. I told you I was going to tell you, and I'm out of time, so I'm going to shut this down. But a few things. So for us, and we're not perfect by any means, one of the things we've always told our kids is that people are the prize. So ever since they were little, before they even know how to talk or whatever, we've never changed that language. People are the prize, not media, not anything else. People are the prize. So with that thought, a couple things for us. We try to keep it pretty simple, but we are not allowed on media if any other human being is in the room. So it's not that they can never be on media. It's just when someone walks in the room, I don't want my kids learning how to be isolated somewhere else when somebody that's made in the Imago Dei, the image of God, comes into their presence, because what? People are they're the prize, not the media. And we've had blowouts with that. Don't get me wrong. My kids push back. They don't like it, right? I'm in the middle of the game. I just lost I lost these coins. I'm like, okay, but those coins aren't the prize. Who's the prize? People are the prize. Come on, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, that's right. So what that practically means for us is that if you have kids and they came over, when you all come in the room, they're supposed to get off media. It doesn't always happen, but they're supposed to get off media and look people in the eye and just notice people are in the room. You know what I'm saying? And then if they want to join him in media, that's different. Then I'm okay with it because they're doing it together. But what I'm not cool is that my daughter's in one room on media, my son's in another room on media, and then somebody else in another room on media, and then we have somebody that's in the room and they don't seem like they're the prize. That's a problem. And believe me, my kids are in media. I'm not totally against it, but that's one. The other one for us, real simple, is just never at the table, never at the dinner table. So for us, you don't do media at the table. I actually let them do media a few weeks ago. They flipped out and loved it. I just said, all right, today you can have your iPad at the table. They're like, are you serious? They're like, where is my dad? Where did he go? You know, and I'm like, I'm right here, buddy. We're being crazy today, you know? Because I can't get into all of it. I think eating together is very spiritual. I just think it's way more spiritual than we give ourselves credit for. I think that life lessons, I think theology comes out at the table. I think counseling comes out of the table. There's so much there. And remember, and if we don't watch it, we're gonna miss all these moments that in 10 or 20 or 30 years, we're gonna look back and wish we had, right? My car is always messy right now. I looked the other day, I have Chick-fil-A barbecue sauce taped into the buckle of my car in my backseat. It drives me crazy. But there is a day where I'm gonna wish I had Chick-fil-A barbecue sauce in the backseat of my car. So if you follow Jesus, he's gonna challenge you to do what? Be there. Enjoy the messy backseat. If you're dating right now, you may one day get married. But all the married people tell you, it's pretty easy to be dating right now. Enjoy being dating. I tell young married people, there's a couple that have just gotten married, I'm always like, enjoy it. Go on trips if you can. Go stay up late. I remember my wife and I, we used to go to Steak and Shake at 2 a.m. because it was happy hour. We only did it one time, but it was crazy. It was so crazy. We were living it up. We didn't have kids, you know? Now we have to administrate half of Florida just to get 2 days away. It's so complicated now, right? But that's also the season. And it's fun and it's embracing, right? And if we don't watch it, man, we're gonna wish away moments that we would just want to be at. So here's what I want to challenge you with. Ephesians chapter 5. Really the question is, what do we do? What do we do with all this? So Jesus challenges us to have margin, to not be so hurried, not be so rushed. So what do we do? Well, Paul tells the church at Ephesus, be very careful how you live. Just take inventory. If you're too much on your phone, get off your phone. I had one guy, he told me on the way out, I'm a big Facebook Marketplace person. I don't know if anybody else is, but my whole house is from Facebook Marketplace. I'm about serious. The one guy told me on the way out, he said, I literally have a business on Facebook Marketplace. Like my full income is from Facebook Marketplace. And the way Facebook works is you have to be on it all the time to get the deal. That's the way it works. And he told me, he said, one of the things the Lord spoke to him, he's going back to New York and he's got all these unfinished projects because of it, because he's always finding the deal and then the deal tells him what he's doing in the future. He said, I'm getting a dump and I'm starting over. He said, it's probably going to cost me 10 or 20 grand in potential income, but I'm not doing well inside. Just told me in the lobby just an hour ago. I don't know what it is for you. I don't know what you need to do, but when you go on a date, maybe it's just like, we are no phones anymore. We're no phones, we're going to be together. I don't want to be prescriptive today. All I know is we got to be careful how we live, because we can either do it unwise or we can do it wise. That's your choice. But I would encourage you to do it wise, right? And I never noticed this verse before. I've quoted this verse so many times. I've never noticed what it said next. Making the most of what? And here's why. Because the days are evil. I don't want to take this too far, but could it be part of the evil of the days is to distract you from making the most of every opportunity? So wherever you are, be there. And as I close, it is a spiritual act of worship for you to be present, content, joyful, and honoring to the Lord. Now, how many of you know it isn't easy? So I got a question for you. Are you here? Would you bow your heads and close your eyes all across this place? I want to give you a moment to respond and to listen and to do what Ephesians 5 said, to give careful attention. Just ask yourself, how well am I present with the Father? And how well am I present with people? He leads us beside still waters and onto green pastures. And I want to challenge you in these next few minutes to be here in the moment. Let's put our phones away, not worry about our kids. They're doing just fine where they are. Let's forget about next week. And I want to give you a moment to be here. The band's going to play. And when you respond, even in song, I want you to be in the song, even if you don't know it. Like, get into the words. Let them spiritually form your expression to God today. So with every head bowed, every eye closed, here's my question. Are you here?